stream today, guys. Bear with me. I will try to control the chat as much as possible. We know that the army of hate, right? Every time that we're talking about Steve G, we are going to be talking about Steve G again. Steve G, is he scared of Mr. Mortensen? Daddy Brent Mortensen, the father of Dylan Mortensen. Is he afraid? Did he meet his match? And the reason we are, theorizing and speculating is because, in my opinion, guys, if you were not here for yesterday's live, please go watch that live. But in my opinion, it sounded a lot like, almost to me, it sounded like he was choosing Dylan and Bethany over his own daughter, Kaylee. So, of course, this is a topic. Anytime we put any Gonzalez name in the title, it's going to attract the trolls. So just let them be. Remember that there's a lot of people out there with mental health issues. A lot of them are unmedicated. Don't take it personally. People are always going to be lurking in the comments. And don't let it affect you. Because at the end of the day, trolls being in here actually helps the channel grow. So we transmute their negativity and make money. We make dollar bills, right? So if it gets wild, it gets wild. I'm not really worried. I know a lot of you guys volunteered to be mods. We'll talk about that later. But first, I want to talk about Mr. Steve Gonzalez. And do you guys think that there is any chance that Steve Gonzalez is afraid to say anything negative about Dylan Mortensen? Because again, in yesterday's live, in my opinion, it appeared that Steve was kind of contradicting himself, because he's like, well, why would they drag the roommates through that, right? Like, why would they drag Dylan and Bethany through this 911 transcript being released? Why would they do that to them? Why wouldn't we get a heads up? But at the same time, he also says, why is it being released? Or why wasn't it released earlier? And I'm like, I don't know. I feel like he maybe wants to say something about the roommates. And now that he's seen this transcript, I want to know what is actually going on his mind. I think Steve is holding back. And we know that Daddy Brent Mortensen, dad of Dylan Mortensen, gives this, if anyone messes with my daughter attitude, right? Kind of a lot like Steve. So some people yesterday in the comments mentioned, is it possible that he might have met his alpha match here, right? And I'm just going to pull up some old messages, because in the early days, Dylan Mortensen's dad was doing a lot of talking, just like Steve Gonzalez was. So I definitely think that there are some overlapping personality similarities there. And I remember him saying to, I believe it was News Nation, saying that this was part of the trauma that she had experienced, that, Dylan had retreated from the public eye and that very few people saw her. And he also had expressed heartache over his daughter suffering from brutal cyberbullying after the trauma she had experienced from surviving the November massacre. And the father also told news channels that his daughter was in the process of healing despite being hounded by bullies. And he actually posted a picture. I will try to post it in the thumbnail, guys, of him looking very, I don't want to say buff, but I guess buff. Is that what a buff guy looks like? I don't know. Guys. I was active military, so I guess I have a different definition of buff. But he's out there like, it looks like he's flexing and like taking a selfie, like, fuck with my daughter, I'll fucking take care of you. That's not what he said, but that's the vibe I'm getting. Actually, that is what he said. Not those words, but that's the message he was trying to get across. Like, you mess with Dylan, you mess with me. Hulkmania over here, right? Vibes very similar to Steve G. Like, I'm gonna get you for this. I'm gonna get you. I'm gonna fix this problem right here, right? So very alpha male vibes, or whatever that means. And this comment really just got me thinking, is that why he's now doing all these interviews? And again, in my opinion, it comes across as him choosing the roommates over his own daughter. Because I don't know about you, but when I went over the full transcript that was released, I didn't hear anybody mention Kaylee. Not one time. Not one time was Kaylee Gonzalez mentioned on that 911 call, okay? No one called to help his daughter ever, okay? Ever, right? So why would you be defending the roommates? Is he actually defending the roommates, or is this just the face that he is sharing, you know? Is that what he wants us to believe? And deep down, he has maybe different feelings. I don't know. I can't read his mind. But again, remember, Steve, nobody cared about your daughter. The roommates did not care about your daughter. They did not mention your daughter in this call. Nobody checked on Kaylee to make sure that she was good, right? And the fact that Steve is coming across, in my opinion, as being more protective of the roommates that, remember, they didn't even attempt to get help for hours. Okay? Hours. Okay. It's almost like he's protecting these two roommates more than his own daughter, right? And in the early days, guys, you know, 2.5 years ago, I'm just going to refresh your memory here. When Steve and Christy had been first asked about the roommates long time ago, their faces said a lot. Their mouths didn't say a lot about the roommates, but in my opinion, their facial expressions said a lot. Like, they were not happy, in my opinion, with the roommates, okay? That body language, that was an honest interview, Steve. That body language, hard to trick, right? They say communication, 70 to 90% of communication is body language, right? Because you can spew a whole lot of BS out here, but body language is much more difficult to control, right? We do a lot of our body language movements subconsciously, unless you're like hyper aware of every movement. That was an honest interview. I want that, Steve. I want that, Christy. I want those faces that were fully expressive when they were doing interviews back in the day. Anytime that the roommates were mentioned, in my opinion, those faces were faces of disgust. Those faces were faces of disappointment. And now we have a stiff-faced Steve G saying, well, you know, the roommates, blah, 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 blah. I side with the roommates, blah, 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 blah. They probably went through something very scary, blah, blah. Sure, maybe. But again, reminder to the G fam, nobody asked any questions about Kaylee. So why are you choosing these two roommates that didn't call 911? Remember, they did not call 911. They decided to not call 911. And now we know that they were not frozen in shock. So I don't know, right? And now we saw Steve getting upset about, you know, the text, these 911 transcripts being released. It's like, I want, like I said yesterday, I want this audio released, because it's one thing to read transcript and then it's another one to listen to what the hell was actually going on in the background. Was the dog barking? Were people screaming, crying? Or were they cool, calm, and collected and passing the phone around? Because that is going to give a very different point of view to the Gonzalez if they ever get to actually hear this audio. Why wouldn't you want that audio released as a parent? I think any parent would want the audio release. If you really are trying to get justice for your daughters or sons, you would want audio released, right? And I want all the text released. I don't want half of the transcript being blurred out. I want everything. I want all the texting that was taking place before and after. We know that we now know that Dylan texted Eric Gower, the private driver. Why is everybody friends with this fucking private driver, first of all? This married man, private driver, why were all the girls so friendly with him? Why was Steve in the beginning saying that? He's a friend of the family. Is he really, though? Did you actually even know this guy? And this is why so many people are now really starting to look at Steve very closely, because sometimes, he opens his mouth and he's coming across like he's on the wrong side, right? It's coming across as him not wanting the truth to come out. It's him coming across as he was wanting the truth to be suppressed. If you don't want the truth suppressed, release the audio, release text, all texts between all of the roommates, all of the people that they were texting, all of the calls to Jack, all of the messages that were allegedly left on Jack's phone. Right? If it's not that big of a deal, if it was just simple messages between two lovers or ex-lovers, because supposedly Kaylee was calling Jack, then why wouldn't you release that? There is no shame in that, right? But it's coming across as him not wanting the truth to come out, and that just makes him look like he's on the wrong side. Yet again, it's very hard to keep giving the benefit of the doubt to the Gonzalez. As a parent myself, I feel for them. That would be horrible to go through whatever they're going through. But at the same time, it's like, also as a parent, guys, if the same thing happened to my children, things would be very differently. And I know that it's easy to say things would be very differently because we really never know until we're in that same situation. But really, I think most of us have an idea of what we would want released. And I've always been a truth follower. So I would want everything released. Even if it's going to hurt me, knowing that potentially the roommates, were doing something shady or something sus, I would still want that truth, even though it could be very blunt, a very hard pill to swallow, right? And people mentioned yesterday to me that maybe, just maybe, Steve doesn't want these things revealed, potentially because of financial interest, right? And I'm like, financial interest, what are you guys referring to? Are you referring to the hex information? Is that what you are referring to? I'm not sure. And as far as the "Are you driving tonight" message sent from Dylan Mortensen to the private driver, I got so much hate, so many trolls yesterday. You guys saw that was insane. Are you driving tonight? People were defending Dylan. They're like, Dylan was only making sure, that he was driving and that the roommates, were on their way. But no, because we had been told that Miss Kaylee and Maddie had been supposedly home since 1:45 a.m. This text was around 2:10 a.m. So stop defending this text. I'm not saying it's anything, suspicious, but it's something that should be taken into account, right? I'm not going to allow the state to try to paint this narrative, try to paint this timeline, but then your timeline doesn't make any fucking sense whatsoever, because why are you asking these questions? You supposedly knew, Dylan, that the victims were already home at 1:45. So why are you texting Eric Gower, the private driver, 2:10 a.m. after the girls had already been dropped off? Maybe it was something as normal as Dylan maybe was wanting to go out. Maybe she wanted a ride to go out. Maybe she knew him. But a lot of people said, that's a little bit sus. What if that is code for something like maybe she's going to need a ride to get out of this house in a bit? And maybe the girls did not stay at the house all night after the crime. We don't know. A lot of people have said it's very likely that these girls came home the next morning, but some people, after that interview that Steve just did, are saying, okay, Steve is looking guilty. Okay, this is not me saying that. I don't care if he is or not. I don't know what he did. I want to get to the truth. I don't know anything. I'm just a YouTuber speculating, theorizing, okay? So people are saying he's guilty. Remember, he said they didn't need to go upstairs. He said, I paid that debt. And I had forgotten about that. So thank you. Linda Jacobs left that comment 20 hours ago on yesterday's live. And I'm like, holy shit, he did say that. I had almost forgotten that because, again, there's so much going on in this case, 2.5 years of this case. I'm like, shit, He literally did say, I paid that debt. Also, the family didn't hurry to get to Moscow, right? They took their time. They took their time. And I've mentioned this before, and I get hate for this also, like, but Steve was in the emergency room. I'm sorry, but again, I don't think it's typical behavior for a family member, for a parent especially, to decide to go to the ER over a rash when you just supposedly heard that 1122 King Road house got shot up, because that was an early rumor that had supposedly gotten to the GE family first, right? Linda also mentioned, also both Xana and Maddie's mom were informants, so there were charges there. But I do remember Steve Gonzalez saying, I paid that debt. What was he referring to? Why was he wearing that hex hat? We have not forgotten about the hex hat. We have not forgotten about his hex background. And again, I have videos that I made 2 years ago. You guys have told me, you need to make a playlist. No, stop being lazy, okay? Go literally, I don't have the time for that at this time in my life. Go to my YouTube channel, go to the videos, go to oldest, watch them all, because I've covered everything. I've had so many people recently watch the old videos. I've made like 3, 4, 5 videos on Eric Gower. 1, 2, 3 years ago. I've lost track, right? And now they're telling me, oh my God, why was nobody talking about this? It's like, I've been trying to tell you guys, okay? I've been trying to tell you guys. Please go watch all those videos, because it's hard to have to go pull out all that information, have to cover it from the beginning when it's already there, right? Please go watch it. A lot of people cannot watch Steve Gonzalez, right? They say that they cannot stomach him because, again, I agree with these comments that most parents would want no stone unturned, right? And not focusing with a mob mentality, or not focusing on a potential patsy, right? They would want, it doesn't matter who, as long as it's the right person. And to do that, you need everything released, everything out in the open, including 911 audio. Because again, I think reading the transcript for the 911 call versus hearing it, it's going to paint a completely different story. And I'm very curious to see if that actual audio is going to be released, because that could really impact the jury, right? And the 911 call, I'm still so confused as to why guilters, right, or closed-minded individuals, why they think that the 911 call is typical. They're like, well, that's normal. These are college students. Like, that's normal. I'm like, I'm sorry, but I have seen so many cases where things are going crazy in a home. Crimes are being committed inside homes. And I've seen even videos of 2, 3, 4-year-olds calling the police and being descriptive of what's going on. We're supposed to believe that God knows how many people were in that house, at least four, right? The 2 roommates and then the 2 people on the call, right? We're supposed to believe that at least 4 people were there, 4 grown-ass adults. Didn't even mention red fluid. Well, they were probably just looking at her in the eyes, is what somebody said. They're like, they were probably entered and just saw Xana, just focused on her eyes. And they saw that she was unconscious. I'm sorry, but again, I've seen too many videos of toddlers calling the cops, being descriptive, being aware of their surroundings. And not one mention of red fluid, not one mention of BLOOD, not one mention of the actual horrific crime that had been committed, okay? We have seen videos, we have seen pictures of 1122 King Road right after the crime took place, and it appears that there's red fluid seeping out the windows. Okay? We're not going to hear any of these 4 people that were inside the house that were in this 911 call. Nobody is mentioning the smell of BLOOD. By the way, this is your trigger warning. If you're sensitive, go away right now, because when people pass away, guess what happens? Your body stops working, right? Your body stops working, and therefore, a lot of people defecate themselves. A lot of people urinate themselves. It's part of the passing away process, if you will. This house would have reeked of red fluid, BLOOD, urine, feces, everything in between. Okay, it would have reeked. You honestly could probably smell it from outside the home after 8 hours. And we're supposed to believe that these people, not one mention of that, they mention unconscious. Oh, but maybe it was the frat boy trying to protect the roommates. Really? Because it sounds like they were all up in there. Right? Nobody noticed. Nobody saw any BLOOD. Nobody heard or noticed 4 people being massacred. In my opinion, guys, these roommates, these survivors, okay, whether they're survivors or not, they need to be in court, okay? The more this case progresses, the more it comes across as Mr. Koberger being set up. There's no way that one person could have done this. It's looking a lot like a big fat no. And then there are still other questions that we still have from back in the day. A lot of you reminded me yesterday of Maddie's coat, okay? It was that Maddie's coat was outside by the fire hydrant. It looked a lot like her coat, right? And let's not forget that the Gonzalez also refused a police interview after the crime. Let's not forget that the 4 a.m. DoorDash delivery, right? Right at the time when the attacks were supposedly taking place. You think that's a coincidence? You think that's another coincidence? Let's add that to our list of 2,000 coincidences, right? And the more all of us research into cryptocurrency, because I didn't know too much. I don't do crypto. I just don't. But when I started doing my own research into cryptocurrency, into all the bank accounts, which by the way, I've also made videos of those, right? Of all of the bank accounts that a lot of these victims had. Cryptocurrency is interesting, right? There's a lot that could go on behind the scenes, right? And if you go watch those videos that I made in the early days about Steve Gonzalez and cryptocurrency and some crazy court cases involving cryptocurrency, you know, is it possible that there's something going on behind the scenes? Is it possible that maybe he is involved in some way? I may be wrong, but it's not typical for families of a young woman who was supposedly massacred in a horrific way to act in this manner. It's not typical. So I'm just saying we need to hear the 911 call. We need to hear the 911 call in full. Someone said, they never said help. They never said, should we call 911? Should we call out the window? Or, oh my God, there's so much BLOOD. Yeah, they didn't even mention Kaylee's name, right? Is it possible that Steve needs things, certain things hidden? Just water, guys. I have a question for all of you guys here today, by the way, okay? Have any of you ever had to call 911 for a person in need? Have you? Okay, probably most of us have, right? What do you do when you're calling 911? Like, do you call from elsewhere in the house? Or do you like run outside the house? Or is the more typical thing to do to kind of sit by that person's side while you're calling 911? I'm just saying, I'm just saying. It just sounds like they never actually checked on Xana, right? Because in the transcripts, we see the girls telling the operator that they're not with the patient. And one of them is telling the other that they need to go check on Xana, which tells us that then they didn't even go check on her. So if they didn't even go check on her, you think they went to go check on anybody else? I don't think so. Some people have speculated maybe Dylan took a look-see after the perps left. If she saw somebody with a ski mask, you know, did she go poke her head in the rooms maybe? Is she the one who cleaned up the shoe print? I talked about the latent shoe print years ago as well. I also theorized that that footprint belonged to her, right? Because she's a big girl. Dylan is a big girl. She looks to be at least 5'8", 5'10". We've seen her in pictures wearing Vans. Did she go take a peek and then realize some shit went down, and that's why the latent footprint? Let me tell you what latent footprint means. That means that there was a footprint leaving the bedroom and that it was cleaned, right? And the only way that that footprint was found was because it was tested for BLOOD. And it's latent. It's not visible to the naked eye, but it's definitely there. And then is it possible that she freaked out? You know? Because it'd be normal, I think, normal behavior to be freaked out if you're seeing masked intruders. You don't know if they're pranking you. Now we know that Kaylee was apparently a prankster now, all of a sudden. I don't think I'd ever heard this before, but now suddenly Steve, in this new interview, is saying she was a prankster. Okay, well, is it possible that maybe Dylan thought she was being pranked yet again by Kaylee, if she was such a good prankster? And then you go like, is this a prank? Is this not a prank? Let me go check this room here right quick. Did I actually hear what I thought I heard? And then does she slowly end up dragging Bethany Funk into this? And if you drag Bethany into this, then that means you both keep your mouth shut, right? Because if anybody freaking talks, you're done for. You are done for. I could see a couple of scared college girls making some sort of deal, right? Right? So I could see them saying, "Oh, let's call one. Let's tell somebody, and let's tell 911 that Xana passed out, and we can confirm she's not breathing." But is it possible that Dylan knew that she had not been breathing for hours? And we have heard the rumors of this being a DRUG house. Let's assume that maybe Dylan had nothing to do with the crime, right? But if you are doing other things, maybe dealing out of this house, you probably want to cover your ass and cover the DRUGS or get those things out of the house before you call 911, right? Somebody said there's a reason they call him Gonzo. Other people have also said that. The "Are you driving" message that Dylan sent to Eric, is this a code for something? Is this for DRUG delivery? Nonetheless, Steve Gonzalez sticking up for these two girls over his own daughter makes things feel extremely off, okay? Extremely off. And if we are going to theorize that Steve wants things to remain behind the scenes, then you would not be happy when the truth starts to unravel, right? Let me tell you a little something as somebody who has worked in the field of psychology for forever now, right? Okay, we all wear masks, right? All of us, right? I have my mask that I wear with you guys. I'm going to treat you differently than I treat my patients, right? I'm going to treat my patients differently than I treat my children, right? We are different with different people. Okay, it's normal to do that. If you can't do that, then that's atypical. I've heard some people say, I'm the same fucking shitty person with everybody. That's not normal, right? And I'm just curious to see the masks of Steve Gonzalez come down. I would love to know what he's actually like when he is alone. Okay, I don't want to know how he's like with his daughters. We already know that, right? We've already seen that. We've already seen how he abandoned his biological daughter. He chose Maddie over his own blood. He preferred to call Maddie a daughter, like a daughter. She was like a daughter. We loved her like a daughter. But when it comes to his biological daughter, it's like, it doesn't fucking exist. She's a nobody to him. Unfortunately for her, right? Because we've seen the unfortunate toll that that's taken on her, and that's not her fault, right? We know what he's like with Christy. We've seen how he is with his daughters. We've seen the different masks with different interviewers. I want to know what he's like when he is alone in a cold, dark room. I would love to know what goes on in his mind. Somebody said, Steve, these girls didn't give two shits about your daughter. When are you going to see that? I'm a stranger to them and I would have made a better effort to get help. Geez, wake up. Exactly. And is it him not waking up, or does he actually know what's going on and he's just choosing to play it cool? Is it one of his masks? Somebody said, from the first week, I have a feeling that Steve was somehow involved. You know, the old saying of the loudest person that talks a lot is probably guilty. Maybe in the middle of the DRUG running from his town to the college. For sure, I have reason for these thoughts. Only more fuel for thought. That is great, Peg. Thank you for sharing that. Let's go to the chat before I head on out of here, guys. It's already 3:10. I have to get to job number 2 at 3:30. How are you guys doing today? Happy Tuesday. My gosh, it's Tuesday already. How is the live? Are you guys happy now that we're doing this horizontal thing again? Apparently a lot of people don't like vertical, so let's see who is in the chat today, guys. Oh, hello. Welcome, Truth Seeker. Hello. Hi, Tony. Tony's always supporting here. Colder Covered. Hello. A people for his name. I believe SG was forced to shut up and stand down. Tony Stevenson. A people. Sure seems so. A stand down. Lisa, I've caught him with some lies. I think he's mad because of releasing of the 911 call. He knew he would be caught in lies. I don't know, but if I was Steve G, if anything, I would be extremely upset at the roommates, because if they already had that potentially that first instinct, bad first instinct of their surviving roommates, and now you see the 911 call, you're like, now I'm really effing pissed, because you're supposed to be friends with my daughter, and this is what I now know that you did. This is now showing your true face, your true Dylan and Bethany unmasked, basically, right? That would piss me off if I was Steve, seeing that 911 call, but I would want it released. Hello, Erin, welcome. Hi, Nikki, welcome. Hello, Truth Seeker. Exactly. Who doesn't at least suggest that they might need to call 911? Hello, D. Small, Digital Maniac, Hot Mess Success. I've taken calls and made them both. Truth Seeker, exactly. Truth Seeker, I love your comment. Wake up fearful because of what you hear. Call 911. Not a difficult concept, okay? Even for toddlers. If Dylan went to Bethany's room, why didn't they escape out the first floor window? Maybe because they were not afraid, right, Suds? That's a great point. Lisa, what about all the BLOOD? If it was like a bath. Exactly. Aaron, thank you for your support, but I'm not looking for mods at this moment. Maybe in the future. Thank you. Tony Stevenson, Dylan called her dad. Why didn't he call 911? That's irresponsible. But Aaron, I'll keep my name or your name in my brain in case I do need mods for the future. Thank you. DM was probably not wearing shoes. David Bird. Patty says, Dylan is front and center. No doubt about that. She's the one who assured Kaylee would be in Moscow. Her +1, right? Her +1 that she ended up ditching, right? You, Dylan Morrison, invited Kaylee. She's supposed to be your +1, but then you fucking ditched her, right? You abandoned her. She ended up staying with Maddie, and they were supposedly riding back with the driver together. If you're inviting somebody and they're coming all the way from out of town to hang out with you, why would you ditch them? And be like, yeah. It's like you didn't really want them there. It's almost like you didn't really want them there, Dylan. Tony says, Dylan called Eric to bring her some Taco Bell chalupas. I doubt it, right? But maybe, I don't know. Lisa, I think bodies were moved. Winchell, I think bodies were staged. SG had said they were threatened by one of the families. I don't know about you, but I'm going to just conclude and assume and theorize that that person is probably Brent Mortensen, just because he seems to be a mirror image, basically, of Steve Gonzalez, right? They both came forward, talked a lot of shit in the beginning, and flexed their muscles and were like, you mess with our daughters, right? So, Micheline Smith, can you show me where you saw that they were threatened by one of the families? Where did Steve Gonzalez actually say that? I would be very curious to know. Thank you. Alan, Miss Jessica, could you tell me what else he said that was off-putting? SG has been too vocal. And that was my first red flag, right? Often when a lot of people are talking a lot, it's a little unusual. Yes, Pixie, thank you for the comment about Steve. It was a great comment. And Dylan's father. Kimberly Winchell's here. Steve is such a bizarre character in all of this, Kim. Yes. Too Fast for Fleas, hello. Pick any song from The Wizard of Oz. That's what's going on in his mind. No mask, just music. That's scary. Yes, Pixie, that is actually true. In the world of psychology, we understand that people would actually rather go with comfortable lies instead of unpleasant truths. That's why most people enjoy being lied to. That's why most people lie to other people. For example, in social situations, right? Like if your wife or husband, let's say the wife, right? Because women tend to be, weird with weight. If the wife is gaining weight, and her dresses are getting a little too tight. Honey, is my dress? Am I getting too big? What does the husband usually say? He usually lies, right? And says, usually, that a normal person with social awareness is going to be like, you're fine, honey. You look really good, right? We also lie to our children, and lying is almost part of our world. Because when you don't lie to people, sometimes you really F them up, especially kids, right? Like if your baby toddler brings you a drawing and he's like, here, mommy, I love you. I made you this really cute drawing. And you're like, wow, you really fucking suck, bro. Like, you can't even stay inside the lines. It's a hard truth to swallow, but yeah, buddy. sucks. You really need to work on your crayon holding skills. Okay, that's not what we do, right? We lie. And we say, oh my God, this is the most beautiful drawing ever. It's gorgeous. I'm gonna hang it in my fridge for like forever. Thank you, baby. I love you so much. You're the best artist, drawer, colorer in the world. Thank you. I love you. Right? We lie. And unfortunately, that's our nature for a lot of us, right? We also want to be lied too because it's comfortable, right? It's comfortable. So yeah, I agree. It's very possible that the parents here are settling because that puts their brain at ease. You have to realize that these people, parents, victims, whoever, in any sort of crime, they're going to, most of them are going to want comfortable lives because they soothe you in the moment. They're very soothing in the moment, right? Because now you can finally sleep. You have been told by the feds and Moscow PD and Billy Bob Thompson and Chief French Fry, and everybody and their mother, like, we have the right guy. You just chill. We got it from here. Don't you worry. This guy's the one that he done it. And it puts your mind at ease and you're like, oh, I can rest now, right? But unfortunately, these lies are very expensive, are very costly long-term, especially when we are dealing with a massive crime, horrific crime, gory crime. Because this is a DP case. You could end up having an innocent person in jail and criminal could still be out and about, right? You still have daughters left. You still have children left. Why wouldn't you want them safe long term? So enough ranting for the day, guys. Thank you guys for drinking water with me and staying hydrated. Thank you guys all for joining me in the chat. Make sure that you leave a like in the comments, leave a like in the chat. If you guys have any questions or comments about Steve G being afraid of Dylan's dad, is it possible? Or am I reaching? Right? Are we reaching? That was a comment that was made by one of our viewers yesterday, and I think she has a great point. It's a very possible, especially now that somebody mentioned that allegedly Steve G had mentioned that he'd been threatened by one of the families. It's like, it almost makes me wonder, was he threatened by Brent Mortensen? And if he actually was, please verify that truth with me, because we don't want to just be spewing nonsense, right? So thank you guys all for being here with the family, always supporting. I love you, Dad. What's the number for 911? That's like the Little Rascals. I remember that. Thank you guys. Have a good night. Leave a like, leave a comment, and make sure that you go and watch all the older videos that I made on Eric Gower. Okay, I made like about five videos on him 2 years ago. So, mwah. Bye guys. Take care.